Thank you very much, Mark, for this kind presentation here. If you allow me, I will speak more in my multilateral capacity because I'm still very much involved in the United Nations thinking and multilateralism about the current challenges and the responses. Just one small addition in the kind of a dialogue to my dear friend Yves Leterme here, because he mentioned Iceland. I do remember, and it's very much related to the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy and what we are thinking about cultural diplomacy. I was meeting just a few years after the crisis, Icelandic, which started in Iceland, you rightfully said that. The president of Iceland was coming visiting, and apart from other discussions that we had, of course, I was very curious on a personal level, and I said, Mr. President, I'm just tempted to ask you, how did you manage the financial crisis? What were your first steps? And he said, you know, oddly enough, the first decision that I took also with the mayor of Reykjavik and the prime minister at the time was to continue building Harpa, the big cultural house, the convention center. If somebody has been in Iceland, you know that this is the heart of Reykjavik. Today, and he said, we just had started to build it, and all of a sudden the crisis came, we don't have funds. And a lot of people were saying, we have to stop this project, it's just spending money in vain. And after a lot of discussion, we said, no, we have to continue. We have to continue because this is where our self-confidence will come, the psychological moment that Yves was talking here about. And it is also about giving something back to the people in terms of a venue when you have cultural events. And today we know that Harpa in Reykjavik has become, I think, even for the European countries, for Nordic countries, but not only for European countries, indeed, a venue of events, of congresses, of debates. And I was deeply impressed by that, by the vision, and about the role of culture that plays in such moments when you have to build resilience, and mobilizing people around a common cause. In this particular case, of course, overcoming a terrible crisis that affected every single Icelander. But today, I would like to enlarge a little bit the debate, and to put another emphasis when we speak about resilience, when we speak about economy, inclusion. And of course, the first point that comes to my mind, and from the point of view, of course, of the United Nations, is the need to continue with our efforts in sustainable development. Now, I know today that maybe in some countries this is not a very popular cause, but when you look about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015, we see that they are still relevant. Of course, there is a lot of change, there is a lot of movement ahead, only 4 years before the end of it. But we know, unfortunately, that only 18% of the SDG targets have been implemented until now. But we should not abandon this, I would say, highly relevant agenda, a blueprint for humanity and for nature, as we call it nowadays. Now, listening to the debate this morning about the technology, AI nowadays, and I was thinking, what an incredible opportunity to, because we are all thinking about what are these shortcuts for countries, for the least developed countries, for developing countries, for others, in order to implement at least part of the SDG agenda. And technology definitely gives a lot of opportunity in that, if, of course, it is used for the cause of what we are speaking, for the cause of humanity, because technology, I believe, does not represent by itself the progress that we want. It's only if it serves the people. So this is my first point. And of course, now there is a lot of debate within the United Nations system, about the post-2030 agenda, how to adapt it, how to include, how to review some of the targets against the background of what is happening. But I do believe that the main thrust of this has not been lost. And here, my second point, which I believe also is equally relevant, what I would like to talk a little bit more in detail, is the concept about human progress and beyond GDP. Now, the World Economic Forum is starting just in some 10 days. And I remember some years ago, the question that was put in front of the World Economic Forum, I think it was a critical question, was, is our long-standing love affair with GDP coming to an end? And this still, I believe, is a very relevant question. Now, why it is a very relevant question? It is because we think with all the changes that has happened in our economies, in societies, we need a different way of measuring progress. A very different way of measuring progress because the business landscape is reinventing itself. We know that many companies, the private sector is putting in front of the question of what is the purpose of business today. Because we know that a lot of challenges, demographic shifts, climate change, which is advancing, loss of biodiversity, inequalities within societies, among different countries. I would say, disruption of technology by itself is already a challenge. And from that point of view, I do believe that the measurement of the GDP historically is losing its only, I would say, its relevance. It doesn't mean that it is not still a powerful measurement for economies in countries, but it is quite limited today. So it measures production, but it does not measure well-being. And I think that from that point of view, I liked very much what Lord Laird was telling us this afternoon about happiness. I know that, and I saw a lot of smiles on the faces, and I remember when for the first time, I think it was Bhutan, that put in front of the General Assembly of the United Nations this concept. I was still there at UNESCO about happiness. Even myself, I also smiled and I said, well, it's so beautifully said, but what does it mean actually? And with time, the way this concept has been developed makes a lot of meaning today, because this is indeed about the well-being of people. But I would say, if I go back a little bit and give credit to the United Nations once again, and I go to the years 1990. Until this time, GDP was the measurement for all progress, the United Nations system, and widely. So it was at that time that the United Nations created a commission where the Pakistani economist Mahbub ul Haq and Indian Nobel laureate Amartya Sen were presiding this commission. They introduced the concept about human development. It was in 1990. And their work led to the production every year of human development reports of the United Nations, and later about the Human Development Index. And I just very briefly want to elaborate a little bit on how this concept evolved with time until almost this day. Because I think it was really kind of a revolution in our mentality, in our thinking about progress, economy, well-being, societies, and all that. Now, at that time, the Commission put forward 3 main criteria, elements. So it was health. Are people living long and healthy lives? Second, it was education. Do citizens have access to learning and knowledge? And third was standard of living. Are people able to meet their basic needs? So it was the debate, the beginning, I would say, of a little bit of more profound research and thinking around it. Now, of course, there are a lot of other developments, and it launched a lot of discussions further down. I would not pretend to exhaust all the different stages of the, I would say, the evolvement of this concept. Like in 2008, it was the financial crisis. French President Nicolas Sarkozy at that time asked once again Amartya Sen, the American economist Joseph Stiglitz, Jean-Paul Fitoussi, a French economist. Also, they led a commission with a very interesting commission on the measurement of economic performance and social progress. And this once again identified the limitations of the GDP. They started to explore alternative indicators, develop a system that truly recognizes the human well-being. So I just want to quote one fundamental idea in the Commission's report, which some say it's kind of a central truth in all of these deliberations, that the time has come to shift our focus from measuring economic production to measuring human well-being, social equity, and environmental sustainability. The Commission went further to say that GDP cannot account for the depletion of natural resources, the erosion of social capital, or the unequal distribution of wealth. It cannot capture the benefits of clean air, healthy ecosystems, or strong communities. So you see how enlarged thinking was proposed by this commission. And then, of course, there were other very important actors. I turn once again to Yves, because OECD also was very, exactly. I think you were there as Deputy Secretary, Executive Secretary for OECD, Better Life Index. I think it was a very important also moment of proposing how you evaluate material living conditions, quality of life. Then UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, proposed an inclusive wealth index which measured social value of economic, human produced and natural assets. And then came the proposal to have the World Happiness Reports, which if you look at that, what Lord Laird was speaking to us, they are indeed focusing on these aspects of human well-being. I think all of them make in their totality an important measuring of the progress. Now, the Secretary General of the United Nations took on board this, and I would like to pay tribute to him because he launched this idea that the United Nations, all the systems, should focus also on beyond GDP approach when they work, different agencies, when they work in their strategic plans and others. And last year, actually it was already the year before, when the Summit of the Future of the United Nations convened in New York, and they adopted a very important decisions. Also, this concept was embraced. And I think that, and I hope that it will continue. It will not be forgotten. It will continue with all the difficulties that the United Nations is experiencing now in multilateral system. I hope that this kind of a vision about progress for the future will continue to guide the work of private sector, of governments, of researchers, and I would say all the prime stakeholders in this process. So I think, if I may end with this, I think this concept is a concept that embraces people, it embraces the planet, where also it was not at the beginning, I have to emphasize, but more and more it is affecting the way we take up challenges of technology, with all the difficulties that we discussed this morning of regulation, of overcoming fragmentation and some of the others. But I do believe that it is something essential if you want to have a true measurement of progress at the end of humanity. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Irina Bokova.